Stats Report Week 12. Welcome back to Talking Giants. My name is Justin Penik, and oh boy, there is a lot of moving parts when it comes to this football team right now. The Giants are 4-7. They're in a playoff hunt, I guess, even though it's kind of like impossible that they make the playoffs, but also at the same time, since they fired Jason Garrett, these last 6 games are really, really important from an evaluation standpoint of Freddie Kitchens, Joe Judge, and then most importantly, Daniel Jones. But now Daniel Jones has this strained neck, and there's a Carpenter that says that he's out for the year. There's Tom Pelissero that says that he's week to week, and then he's out there practicing today, warming up with the team with the helmet on, and Jordan Ronan saying that there's an opportunity that he plays this weekend against the Dolphins. There's so much happening right now with this football team, and these last 6 games are really big. And basically, before we get to the whole stats part of it, the last 6 games are important if Daniel Jones plays. The last 6 games, and the more games that he misses, the more games kind of become irrelevant, right? Because you can't get the evaluation of the coach, the play caller, and especially the quarterback when the quarterback's the most important thing. And when he's not playing, it's a tough spot, it's a tough situation. But we're not really going to be talking a lot about Daniel Jones this episode. With the offense, we're going to be talking about Freddie Kitchens and the tendencies. But first, let's get some Chicago Bears draft odds, shall we? Because really, there's only 2 realistic games in which the Chicago Bears can really win on the remainder of their schedule, and that's against the Seattle Seahawks. When if Russell Wilson's there, you would think that he would take care of the Bears, and then also the Giants. When the Giants play the Bears, regardless of whether it's going to be with Daniel Jones or without Daniel Jones, that's the one game that I definitely want to win, and that is the Super Bowl, right? When the Giants play the Bears, because no matter what, if we win or we lose, I guess it'll help the draft position if you're in that spot. And according to Football Outsiders, the Bears have a 29.5% chance at a top 5 draft pick. That's the draft odds. Let's just get right to talking about Freddie Kitchens as a play caller in his first game where he was the primary play caller. Not going to call him the offense coordinator because apparently now that's a collaborative position that the Giants coaching staff is taking over. But Freddie Kitchens is the primary play caller. So let's look at his tendencies and some of the results that we got. Now, first of all, 13 points. It's not what you want. We got to score more points, especially when you're talking about the defenses forcing 4 turnovers. However, there were some tendencies, which that's what I talked about last week in last week's stats report video. There were some tendencies that were encouraging. But let's look at the pass to run ratio first. Freddie Kitchens this past week against the Eagles, 53% to 47% pass to run ratio overall in quarters 1 through 4, downs 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then if you compare that to Jason Garrett in weeks 1 through 11, 62% to 38% pass to run ratio. And again, that's Jason Garrett's season so far. So a little bit of a difference there. You saw Freddie Kitchens try to run the ball a little bit more, and that doesn't surprise me. You saw that his split was somewhat even when he was in Cleveland, where he had a pretty balanced offense where it wasn't too pass heavy, wasn't too run heavy. The main difference is that the passing offense, and the rushing offense for that matter, but the passing offense created more explosive plays, and the average depth of target was higher. So there was better, more quality passing attempts in that Cleveland Brown 2019 offense, and in 2018 for that matter. So that's what I'm really looking for from this Freddie Kitchens offense. I don't mind if the Giants aren't throwing the ball 60% of the time, and they're not throwing the ball like Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and those high of rates, right? But I want there to be more balance, and when the Giants do attempt to throw the ball, I want to see that yards per completion and the yards per attempt go up more, and that's hopefully what Freddie Kitchens will bring to the table. Now, what is very significant when you look at the pass-to-run ratio is looking at it on first down. 38% to 62% was the pass-to-run ratio for Freddie Kitchens against the Eagles. 62% run rate on first down. Now, if you compare that to Jason Garrett's season so far, 58% pass rate, 42% run rate. So that is a pretty substantial difference. It's a 20% difference of throwing the ball and then passing the ball on first down. It's a one-game basis. Let's see how it develops as the weeks go on. But Jason Garrett has made a concerted effort to almost kind of abandon the run on first down because it hasn't been working. And Freddie Kitchens tried to get back to it this game, and obviously it didn't really work out, but we'll see how it develops, and we'll see if this rushing offense can improve as the weeks go on with Freddie Kitchens as play caller. I'm willing to bet no, but as it does not work, will Freddie Kitchens bump up that pass rate on first down? We'll stay tuned for that. But the biggest tendency and the biggest difference that I saw, the most notable difference in Freddie Kitchens calling plays this Sunday is in yards after the catch per completion. It was the third highest total of this season, yards after the catch per completion. The Giants' skill position players averaged 6.3 yards after the catch per completion. Third highest total this year, and third highest total of the last two seasons of the 2020 season and the 2021 season. So one game, you saw a lot of more crossing routes, a lot more opportunities for guys to catch the ball and then get momentum under their belt and run forward, right? So much of Jason Garrett's offense was catching the ball, your back is to the end zone, and then you have to restart all of your momentum and go forward again. And by the time that you do that, you're tackled because the NFL is just quick to get to ball carriers, right? And you're going to see a lot of yards after the catch in the explosive play report. The explosive play report, you have 2 plays of 20-plus yards. One run and then one pass. And it was a nice little Saquon Barkley 30-plus yard run. That was only the second run of 20-plus yards that Saquon Barkley has had this year. You saw 5 plays of 15 to 19 yards. They were all passes. 2 explosive runs. There was a 14-yard run by Daniel Jones and then the 32-yard run by Saquon Barkley. Nice to finally see some yards after the catch. Something that you're going to see and something that Bobby Skinner charts every single week. But something significant with this Freddie Kitchens offense, plays with 2 or more 15-plus yard route concepts. Daniel Jones was 8 for 11, 106 yards, 9.6 yards per attempt, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 0 sacks, and then plays with 1 or less 15-plus yard routes. 11 for 19, Jones was 96 yards, 5 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, and 1 sack. You're seeing on a lot of these explosive plays, they have yards after the catch, they are involved, and you're seeing where even though these plays that go between 15 to 19 yards, you're seeing that they're caught in the intermediate part of the field. You get yards after the catch, but you also have other routes on the field that are going for 15-plus yards, that are going for 10-plus yards, 20-plus yards, because this is a simple concept, but something that we've been talking about for 2 years now. You can have deep concepts that are not necessarily going to be targeted for the purposes of throwing the ball deep. But if you call the deep concepts, that can open up intermediate routes in the middle of the field or at that lower area part of the field, so you don't always have to throw the ball deep. So you don't always need 3-4 seconds to throw the ball. This is what we've been talking about, and in one game, Freddie Kitchens gives us the tendencies. 13 points, it's not enough, right? Certainly not enough. But these are the tendencies of which we have been asking Jason Garrett to do, and he has not been doing. You're seeing these plays that are going in the middle of the field. You're seeing the plays that go 15 to 19 yards. Daniel Jones is not throwing the ball deep, but you also have other concepts that are going down the field. And that is what we've been asking for about really 2 years now. So what I want to talk about right now is the Giants rushing game and just about how bad it is. Just how bad it is. Between Saquon Barkley and Devontae Booker's rushing attempts, when you combine them together, 21% of them have gone for either no gain, 0 yards, or a negative gain. That's 1 out of every 5 rushing attempts. That's bad. It is a full-on reflection about how bad this offensive line is. The Giants are also 29th in the National Football League at getting runs and getting plays, rushing attempts of 5 to 10 yards. The whole point of running the ball in the NFL today, largely, is not to get a home run and for it to not go 20, 30, 40, 50 yards. It's simply to stay on schedule. There's a schedule and there's a game script that you follow in the NFL, and every single offense follows. And if you just waste plays by 1 out of every 5 rushing attempts is going for 0 negative yards, it makes things harder on your already bad offensive line. It makes things harder on your already kind of sort of flawed QB, right? It just makes things harder when you are wasting so many plays and this rushing offense is just so bad. And I tend to avoid the rushing offense and I talk about throwing the ball all the time because it is the most important thing in the game of football. But when it's this bad, and there are so many plays that are just wasted and you just can't rely on it and you become a one-dimensional team, so one-dimensional where it does hurt you, it's very, very bad. So it mostly is on the offensive line. According to DVOA and Football Outsiders, the Giants are the 28th rushing ranked team right now. Now, I would say that they're the second worst. I would say that the Houston Texans are undoubtedly worse than the Giants offense running the ball, but according to DVOA and their efficiency metric, the Giants are ranked 28th. So that's that. Now, we do need to have a little bit of a conversation comparing Saquon Barkley and Devontae Booker. So let's have that by looking at this graphic. I was a psychopath this week, and I charted every single rushing attempt by every single running back this year. The data on Elijah Penny and Gary Brightwell are coming, but Devontae Booker and Saquon Barkley are the two guys that I want to show and I want to showcase because they've gotten the majority of the carries so far. And really, I don't think there's anything definitively that you can take out of, we're going to chart Elijah Penny and Gary Brightwell's carries and they should be getting more carries. No, nobody is going to be saying that at all. The call for Gary Brightwell to get more carries, by the way, is kind of a wild take. He's not a very good running back, but neither here nor there. You could see the comparison between Saquon Barkley of the rate of runs that he has, no gain to negative gain. Same thing with Booker. The rate of runs that go for 1+ yards, 3+ yards, 5+ yards, 10+, and then et cetera, etc. So you could see the breakdown there. And you could see that Devontae Booker having more carries is better in every single category besides rates of getting runs of 15+ yards and 20+ yards. And really the most notable thing that I look at is Saquon Barkley. 1 out of every 4 rushing plays for Saquon Barkley result in no gain or a negative gain. And then Devontae Booker, it's 1 out of every 5 or 6, whatever 18.6% amounts out to. 1 out of every 5 or 6 carries for Devontae Booker results in a negative gain or a zero or no gain. That's a significant difference. That really, really is a significant difference. And I know, you take out the Raider game, at which the Giants' offensive line was really moving guys off the ball well. But this is daunting. The conversation of Saquon Barkley or Devontae Booker, who should be getting more carries, at this point should not be close. Devontae Booker is on his 3rd team. He is a journeyman backup running back. And Saquon Barkley is touched by the hand of God, 2nd pick of the 2018 draft. I understand he's coming off of injuries, but it is year 4. Year 4. And this guy is, unfortunately, Saquon Barkley, expected to carry this offense. And the conversation between these numbers should not be siding with Devontae Booker. The Giants' offensive line is bad, but they should not be siding with Devontae Booker. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, Justin, Saquon Barkley is more of a threat to defenses, so the Giants are stacking the box against him more than Devontae Booker. Well, that's not necessarily correct. Saquon Barkley has faced an 8+ man box on his rushing attempts 16.44% of the time. Devontae Booker has faced an 8-man box 14.29% of the time. So that's basically even. It's basically about the same, that both of them have faced 8+ man boxes at the same rate. And what's even more jarring is that Wayne Gallman faced an 8+ man box last year 40% of the time, which was like the highest in the National Football League, and he averaged over 4 yards per carry. That offensive line was better, but Wayne Gallman was also a very, very efficient runner. So both of these guys are averaging less than 4 yards per carry when they're facing 8+ man boxes at less than 20% of the time, and half the rate that Wayne Gallman was. It's a reflection of how bad the offensive line is this year, and then also these running backs, they're just flat out, they're maybe not having a really good year. Let's also talk about that too, where, Devontae Booker is nothing special either. So something I also want to talk about too, when you compare Saquon Barkley like right now, and when you compare him maybe to 2018 and 2019, Saquon's yards before contact at 1.8 is the same as it was in 2019. Yet in 2019, his yards after contact was an entire yard better than 2021. So his yards before contact, Saquon Barkley, in 2021 and in 2019 is 1.8, but in 2019, his yards after contact was 2.8. This year, it's 1.8. So compare that to Devontae Booker. Devontae Booker's average yards before contact this year is 2.3 yards per attempt, and his yards after contact per attempt is 1.4. So Saquon Barkley is a little bit better in terms of getting extra yards after contact, right? But they're somewhat pretty close. So maybe you're saying, oh, but Justin, the yards before contact for Devontae Booker is a half a yard better for him than Saquon Barkley. So the offensive line must be blocking better for Devontae Booker, right? That's not necessarily the case, because you look at the time behind the line of scrimmage spent by each running back. Devontae Booker has spent an average of 2.62 seconds behind the line of scrimmage per carry this year. That is the third quickest in the NFL. Saquon Barkley, 2.89 seconds average time behind the line of scrimmage per carry. That is the ninth slowest in the National Football League. Okay, so sure, here's the line of thinking. Devontae Booker is more efficient. So he hits the hole faster. Therefore, his yards before contact, his yards before he is even hit, is better than Saquon Barkley. Now, it could be true. It could be true that the offensive line just flat out blocks better for Devontae Booker. I don't know. There's no way for me to really prove that. But when you look at the time behind the line of scrimmage, the fact that Saquon Barkley takes so long to get back to the line of scrimmage, and he is one of the slowest running backs in the NFL to get back to the line of scrimmage, that is why his yards before contact is so much substantially lower than Devontae Booker. And I hope that makes sense. Hope that makes sense. All right. So again, the offensive line is bad. And if I had to put a pie chart, I'd probably say 70% of a running back's performance is basically based off of offensive line production. It may even be more than that. But when you compare Devontae Booker and Saquon Barkley, the conversation between these two guys should not even be close because of the investment that we put on Saquon Barkley. It may not be fair to him, but it's just the reality of where we're at, where this Giants rushing offense is non-existent. It is a non-factor. And the offensive line is bad, and guess what? Our running backs may not even be that good either. And it's an unfortunate point at which we're at right now. So let's move on and talk about the defensive side of the ball now, which is a much more fun conversation than talking about the Giants' offense and the rushing offense. Now, something that's pretty interesting to note, Giants' rushing defense is the worst in the National Football League. Now, they're ranked 31st in DVOA, but you can see in this Ben Baldwin chart that's provided here on the EPA per play basis, the Giants' rushing defense is the worst in the National Football League. But according to Football Outsiders DVOA, they have a top 10 passing defense, a top 10 pass defense, and that's ranked 7th. So, what you're seeing right now is you're seeing the value for this Giants' defense in stopping the pass and how things get a little bit easier when you do that. And more importantly, I think, is forcing turnovers. Because the Giants' rushing defense is bad. There have been teams that have just been methodically just running the ball against Giants, running the ball against Giants. You saw it against the Eagles. But when you force 4 turnovers, it makes things a lot easier. And especially when you're forcing those turnovers and not allowing them to throw the ball successfully. It sets up play action, not allowing the deep explosive passing play when the Giants are stacking the box. When you can stop the pass, things just get a lot easier. And also, when you're preventing the explosive play, this is something that I talk about all the time on the offense side of the ball. If you're not producing the explosive play, your drives are going to stall. And it's the same thing on the defense side of the ball. If you stop the explosive play, then you're going to have offenses that you face, their drives are going to stall. They're going to turn over the ball. Somebody's going to commit a holding penalty. Somebody's going to drop a pass, etc., etc. So things are just going to go wrong the more plays that you force an offense to run in the NFL. And since week 7, by the way, after that LA Rams game, the Giants defense has been number 1 in the National Football League at preventing the explosive pass play of 20-plus yards. They've been number 1 in the National Football League. And that is where they've really, at least on the defensive side of the ball, they've started to turn their season around. That even includes the Tampa Bay game where they had a bad defensive game that game. But they are number 1 in the National Football League at stopping the explosive pass play since week 7. And overall, throughout the entire season, they're ranked number 7. They're 7th in the NFL at explosive pass play rate, the least explosive pass play rate on the defensive side of the ball. So good for the Giants. They're 5th in turnover rate so far this year. They've been turning over the ball, stopping the pass, stopping the explosive pass play. That's Patrick Graham's MO. Patrick Graham's MO, and they don't even have a pass rush, right? Considering that they don't even have a pass rush, and Tay Crowder, he had a nice interception, but Tay Crowder is not a very good football player, and they are desperately missing Blake Martinez. That's why I really love Patrick Graham as a coach. Are the turnovers sustainable? That's the main question with this Giants defense. Are they sustainable from a week in, week out basis? That's really the only question. Hopefully they can continue to do it, but that's something that analytics has kind of talked about for a pretty long time is, how sustainable are forcing turnovers, especially on the season-by-season basis. So Dan Duggan brought up this week, I don't know if he necessarily provided stats behind it, but he talked about how, one of Patrick Graham's MOs on the defense side of the ball is preventing how effective the number one wide receiver is on the opposite side of the ball. Now, the Giants have played some really, really good wide receiver ones this year. You have Amari Cooper, right? Mike Evans, Hunter Renfrow, Cooper Kupp, Terry McLaurin. They've played a lot of good quality wide receiver number ones this year. So I decided, hey, I'm going to look at every single game this year, and I'm going to calculate the wide receiver number one's stats for this entire year so far. So there's been 12 games. The Giants have allowed opposing teams' number one wide receivers for a total of 72 catches, 104 attempts, 815 yards, 7 touchdowns. Now, if you put that on a per-game basis, 6 catches, 8.66 targets, 67.91 yards, and then 0.58 touchdowns. Now, if your number one wide receiver is getting 6 catches, 67 yards, and half a touchdown per game, so 1 out of every 2 games are catching a touchdown pass, that's probably a pretty good season. But when you consider just how good the wide receivers that we have played have been, and also consider that the large majority of the big yardage games have come towards the beginning part of the season, like Terry McLaurin had a 100-plus yard game that was thrown in early in the season. Jerry Jeudy had a pretty solid yards game the first game of the season. So the Giants defense overall, they've done, I would say, a solid job of limiting, number one wide receivers, where I don't think it's anything maybe spectacular. But when you put it on the per game basis, I think the per game basis looks a little bit better when you look at like the raw number of 800 yards and 7 touchdowns. So, final guy I want to talk about is Xavier McKinney. Xavier McKinney, so fun to talk about right now. And when I talk about how the Giants have not been allowing a lot of explosive pass plays, when I've been talking about how the Giants are 5th in turnovers forced and turnover rate on the defensive side of the ball right now, Xavier McKinney is one of the big reasons why that is the case. I don't typically like to talk about PFF grades all that often on the stats report, but you could see from this tweet, Xavier McKinney is one of the best graded safeties in the National Football League right now. And PFF can be tough on players sometimes, and sometimes they do grade players a little irrationally. Like David Mayo was a really high graded player a couple years ago, but Xavier McKinney has been balling out. That matches the eye test, right? When we talk about the Giants forcing turnovers, when we talk about the Giants not allowing explosive pass plays, when we talk about how the Giants have the 7th least average depth of target in the National Football League right now as a defense, that is all really linked to Xavier McKinney playing well at that deep safety spot. Logan Ryan's been out a couple weeks, and he's been in and out. Jabril Peppers has been out too, and Xavier McKinney has really stepped up to the plate after having a really rough first stretch of the season. Like, he was not a good football player, and I think I called him out, and you saw how the Giants defense the first few weeks of the season, they were allowing a lot of explosive pass plays. Well, Xavier McKinney starts to clamp down. He starts flying around in that secondary, having a bunch of different pass plays and having a bunch of different pass deflections. You see how it's been paying off. And the interceptions as well when your first turnovers looks really good as well. And Xavier McKinney, we're 17 games in now. 17 games in, so you can see his stat line through 17 games, which, hey, 17 games is the new season. So Xavier McKinney, this is still basically his rookie year, and he's playing really well. Very encouraging. Oh, glad I got Ajit at the end of the video. All right, so that's a stats report, Week 12. Lot to talk about on the offense side of the ball. Nice to see that the defense is playing well. Can they keep it up? They have a relatively easy schedule from here on out. Giants defense has like the 4th easiest schedule remaining in the National Football League according to Football Outsiders, but the Giants offense has the 19th easiest schedule. So I'm actually glad that the Giants defense has a pretty easy schedule, because we kind of know what we already know about the defense. There's nothing new that we're going to learn. We know the edge room is bad. We know Patrick Graham is good, and we know the secondary is good. We know that we miss Blake Martinez. Offense, I want them to have a little bit of a challenge, and I hope Daniel Jones plays. All right, so that's a stats report, Week 12. We'll see you next week. Go Giants, go Blue. Peace. Thanks for watching.